You know, I say it all the time, but 1984 was the greatest year in music history, in my opinion. I mean, it was so fiercely competitive. Only 5 albums went to the #1 spot. That's the least amount in history. Michael Jackson, Thriller, Prince, Purple Rain, and Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA. They all battled it out for chart supremacy. Today's guest was one of those 5 #1 albums. He stuck in for just a week with a record that had 4 top 10 hits. He's going to tell us a story next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you love the rock and roll era, 60s, 70s, 80s, the 90s, click the subscribe button below right now. Make sure that you click the bell so that you do know when our new interviews drop. We got a lot coming. We have a new series starting on our Patreon page where you're going to go behind our upcoming live series with the legends. Check that out by joining our Patreon. That's in the description. So in the fall of 1983, Huey Lewis and his band, The News, they released their 3rd album, Sports. Huey had started out in the band Clover in the San Francisco scene before releasing 1 single under the name Huey Lewis and the American Express. That secured a deal with Chrysalis Records. Chrysalis, they weren't crazy about his band name, fearing that the credit card company would, sue him, come after him. So in early 1980, the band did change their name to Huey Lewis and the News, which, great band name, come on. And they released their debut record, which was self-titled. Didn't make a lot of noise on the charts. It went to number 203 on the album charts, but it was a stepping stone for their sophomore album, Picture This. That was released in early 1982. It put Huey and the News on the map. The first single, Do You Believe in Love, that climbed the charts all the way up to number 7, with its soulful musings and heavenly sing-along chorus. Do you believe in love? We got the story of that. We'll have to link below for it. The song was actually written by famed producer Mutt Lange, if you remember. From there, the second single, Hope You Love Me Like You Say You Do, that went to the top 40. And I hope you love me like you say I do. Another single, Working for a Living, that was an original pen by Huey and his bandmate Chris Hayes. That just missed the top 40. It stalled at number 41, although the song has become a classic of the News canon. I'm taking what they're giving 'cause I'm working for a living. There was also a cover of the late Phil Lynot's song, Giving It All Up for Love. Lynott, the singer and bassist of the legendary group Thin Lizzy. Huey was friends with him. He actually played harmonica on Phil's first solo records, as well as Thin Lizzy's live album. Huey and the News, they were set up to go big, really big, with their 3rd album, which was Sports. It had its straight-ahead bar band rock and blues that was mixed with new wave doo-wop. I mean, Huey was all things eclectic and melodic and soulful, and all those qualities spoke to the masses. Now, the first single was a cover of a song written by the Deadshot team of Mike Chapman and Nicky Chinn. Great songwriters. Heart and Soul, that was a massive hooky slice of, like I said, new wave doo-wop, with just a smattering of rock. One of my favorite songs from the 80s. It was a #1 hit on the Rock Tracks chart, went to number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100, and we actually have the story next from Huey. And then the next single was I Want a New Drug. It topped the Dance Club Play chart, and it became their biggest hit up to that point. It went to number 6 on the Hot 100. I want a new drug. When the woman made me sick. Huey wrote the song I Want a New Drug in just a few minutes, and it was such a massive hit with its equally transfixing music video that was played on heavy rotation on MTV. When the wall made me crash my car and make me feel. The song was, of course, parodied by Weird Al Yankovic. I want a new duck, one that won't try to bite. And it also may have compelled the producers of the movie Ghostbusters to ask Huey to write a song for the movie.
Chairman of the largest paranormal removal company in America.
Now, he did turn them down. He was working on Power of Love for Back to the Future. They were said to have wanted a song very similar to the vibe of I Want a New Drug, and let's just say that they probably got exactly that.
Hey, who can you call?
Huey just kept releasing, hit single after hit single. Third single, The Heart of Rock and Roll. That was the song that really sealed the deal for sports. It's the one that put it at number one.
They say the heart of rock and roll is still beating.
Song peaked at number 6 on the Hot 100, and that's when the album snuck into the number 1 spot on the Billboard album chart.
Heart of rock and roll, still beating.
1984 was the year that the least amount of different artists were at number 1 on the album charts, like I said, although Sports finished 1984 at number 2 on the year-end chart. That was further proof that it was an album for the ages. The competition was just absolutely fierce, and it was no different on the Hot 100. In another year, The Heart of Rock and Roll might have been a number 1 hit, but in 1984, the charts were just chock full of rock and pop excellence. Now, the week that Huey's song peaked at number 6, the 5 songs that were ahead of it were Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper,
You will find me time after time.
Let's Hear It for the Boy by Denise Williams,
Let's hear it for the boy.
Oh Sherry by Steve Perry, The Reflex by Duran Duran, and Sister Christian by Night Ranger. 3 of those 5 were number 1 hits at some point in 84, and they still resonate today. All of them do. That's how phenomenal the year 1984 was. It's the likes of which we'll never see again. The Heart of Rock and Roll is a no doubt about it classic of the Huey Lewis canon. It's a song that described the pockets of musical movements that were lighting up radio at the time, written by Huey and saxophonist extraordinaire Johnny Cola, with an earth-rattling sax solo to boot. I love it. Now, I was fortunate to discuss this song and its inspiration with Huey in a long-ranging interview on his greatest songs pretty recently. And I want to share that story now, along with his hit Heart and Soul. Got the story to both of those and how Sports was able to go the distance. Now, as we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. The glasses that I rock every day on the show. Go design your own pair at Zenni.com. You can also, like I said, add other great add-ons, features. You can get clip-on sunglasses that are awesome, blue blocks that protect your eyes from digital blue light, and more for less than the price of a vinyl record. Go check it out today. Here is Huey Lewis with the story of the Heart of Rock and Roll. The Heart of Rock and Roll, your second straight number 6 hit, and it went to the top 5 on the rock charts, but a song with such precision, phenomenal hook, the heartbeat sound. Mm-hmm. Tell me about, is that where it kind of started?
Lyrically, we'd had a gig in Cleveland. We're from San Francisco, and we'd heard that Cleveland was the great rock and roll town, ground zero for rock and roll. And we're from Marin County. We had the '60s. We had the Grateful Dead and saw Hendrix at Fillmore, Cream at Fillmore, and how can Cleveland be the heart? I mean, come on, come on. How can they compare with us musically? So we were biased. We go to the Agora in Cleveland, and like our first gig we ever have there, and it was an unbelievable gig, and the fans were just tremendous, and they were, and generally they're better fans in Cleveland than they are in San Francisco. They really are, and they're more appreciative. And so we'd had this great gig, and in the morning we're driving out, and I bought this T-shirt that shows the skyline of Cleveland, and it's smoky, industrial-looking town, and it says, "You got to be tough, Cleveland. You got to be tough." You know what? And it hit me. I said, "You know what, guys? The heart of rock and roll is in Cleveland. It really is."
They say the heart of rock and roll is still beating, and from what I see,
wow. That's a pretty good title for a song. And they went, Heart of Rock and Roll is in Cleveland? So, okay. So then I reformed it to be the Heart of Rock and Roll is still beating. But that was the idea. The idea was that there's real rock and roll in other places than LA and New York. Music is of the people. You go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's some great musicians in Tulsa, Oklahoma, man.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, and when you see a good band that comes from Tulsa, Oklahoma, they're from that place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's really cool, I think. And so
that's
what
the
song was trying to say.
Well, I got introduced from that song because I loved it so much. My dad said, you know what, another song you liked that was popular when I was a kid is Dancing in the Streets. It kind of reminded me because they're doing the call out to all the different places. And what I loved about it is talk about New York, you start out with that, and it's kind of the new wave and post-punk scene there. But then when you go to LA and Hollywood, and I want to talk about a specific lyric about Sunset Strip, you're talking about hard rock and the neon lights and the pretty girls, all that kind of stuff. But I love it when you say they play their music, that hard rock music, they like it with a lot of flash, but it's still the same old backbeat rhythm that really, really kicks them in. And that, my friends and I love that because that was a way for us to be able to say ass.
Yeah.
Same old backbeat rhythm that really, really kicks them in the...
Well, of course, you opened the 85 Grammys with that song, and that was
Right.
killer. And it's been used. Did you see when they use it in The Office?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Take it away,
Mike gave me a list of his top 10 Springsteen songs. 3 of them were Huey Lewis in the News, 1 was Tracy Chapman Fast Car, and my personal favorite, Short People.
Night Rider and
what if I
A-Team.
got paid for them?
Yeah, not kidding. And of course, it's sent out to all these different radio stations, and they got to use the names of their cities.
And then,
Santa
of course, the label wanted us to do. I mean, the story there. The label wanted us to do every city in the world, every city that had a radio station. So we go into New York, and they put the thing, and now I go, Boston, and and then so I do like 40 cities in America, which is a little silly. It's tough to, but I get all this on the ride out because they were going to give them special copies so they could. So I do like all these cities. Now we go, let's do Canada now. I said, Canada? We're going to do Canada? Yeah, let's do Canada. Okay. Toronto,
Yeah.
And now we go, and finally I go, Halifax. And I went, wait a second. The heart of rock and roll just can't be in Halifax. I can't sell Halifax. And the irony is that now for our tour, was it the sports? No, I don't know. For, I guess, Small World Tour, like 2 or 3 years later, we go up to Nova Scotia to rehearse. And because we're going to play Canada first and then go play America. We did like huge shows in Canada, hockey rinks and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And our second gig was in Halifax. We go out down to the town, and it's the funkiest little town, and there's this cool little blues bar, and there's this great band playing. They're playing like Cajuns, like New Orleans kind of stuff. I mean, second line stuff, and playing great funk, and it's a great little blues town.
So you realize that the heart of rock and roll
really is the heart of rock and roll.
It can be
I
in
could have sung
Halifax.
Halifax all those years.
Did you ever have to throw out like Boise, Idaho, or Billings?
Sure, I think we're somewhere there's Boise out there. I'm sure there
I
is.
love it.
Hard rock and roll is the beating, yeah.
My second favorite Huey song of all time, written by Mike Chapman, Nicky Chin,
Right.
who also wrote "Kiss You All Over," Exile.
Right.
But that was number 8 pop, number 1 rock, and that was such an amazing rock and roll song because Exile's version is like kind of disco. It's got a little bit of disco in it. You guys is straight ahead rock and roll, and it felt like you guys brought even more melodies to it than were already there. There's like 8 different melodies to that song.
Yeah, well, first of all, that song, interestingly, was the last thing we recorded for sports in exactly the same way as Do You Believe in Love was the last thing we recorded for Picture This. We had written all these songs, but we knew we needed a hit. And I heard this. We knew Mike Chapman because he had come up and flirted with producing us back in the day. And I had asked him if he had any songs, and he sent me this tune. And it was, to me, to my ears, commercialist. And I now know it's the Exile version. I didn't even know that. But I said, wow, this is a hit, Let's just do it. And so we did that just to kind of cover our base, It was the last thing we recorded, and we pretty much just aped the record. I think. I mean, I think we did exactly the same thing that Mike Chapman did with Exile. I think. I mean,
I don't know. I listened to them both back to back.
Cause she's hard and soul. She's hard and cold.
That's a really rocking song. There's a lot going on in that, but you're always cuts through the
well,
record.
the reason there's so many hooks is because it's Mike Chapman, Nicky Chin song. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they write. They write pop music, and they're great at it. And so But the approach was to harden it up a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
you're quite right. But I knew it was commercial, but we tried to harden it up a little bit. But a funny story, you know, I was pitched the song from a publisher at Chrysalis Records, a nice guy who pitched me this, who sent it to me, because Mike Chapman had contacted him, I guess, and he sent me the song. And I went, man, that's great. So we cut it, and we were mixing it in the studio, or I guess we were cutting it in the studio somewhere in LA. And I went to the bathroom. I go out of my studio and I walk down the hallway to another studio, and in the other studio I hear Heart and Soul coming out. The Bus Boys were
We're
cutting
Bus Boys
Heart
version.
and Soul also at the same time. So the publisher had pitched the song to two different people, and they were cutting it at the same time. And I thought, oh my gosh, so maybe we shouldn't. But I listened to it. I perched outside the door. And I thought, nah, our version's a little better.
Well, and the hand claps too definitely helped that.
Thank God for the hand clap.
I know, no kidding. Leave us a comment about this song and Huey Lewis below. What do you remember about these songs, Heart and Soul and The Heart of Rock and Roll? Heart and Soul really is one of my favorite songs from the 80s. Just a masterpiece of pop. What were some of your favorite albums and songs from 1984? Let us know in the comments. Let's have a good discussion. If you like this video, we would love to have you as a subscriber. Make sure to do that and check us out on Patreon. The link is below. Help us keep the music alive. Get your 1984 shirt as well. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my